Hello everyone, Astro here. So since today is TF2's 10th anniversary, it's their birthday today, I kind of want to make a video about how I got into TF2 and kind of what I did before TF2, like I got into TF2, right? So this is not scripted or anything, so it might be a little rough around the edges, but I'll try to make it as accurate as possible. So, this is like way back when I was like, maybe like 8 years old. I started playing RuneScape, and this was like before the dungeoneering era. If you catch on with me, what is like RuneScape and stuff and their history. And I played RuneScape for a few years until I kind of got sick of it, and this was especially when like kind of the wilderness disappeared and like a lot of big changes were coming to RuneScape, very controversial ones. I kind of quit the game because I didn't think it was very fun anymore. Also, I got PvP'd a few times and lost a good amount of gear, so I kind of got sick of the game. Also, big changes were coming up in my life, and I was moving from my home country to a different country, and this was like very influential in me quitting RuneScape and moving on to different things. So after playing RuneScape, I pretty much got into Minecraft. This was like in the alpha slash beta days, and I loved just making servers and like programming all the plugins in it and setting it up for my friends at school. And this was like a really big time in my life where like the social aspect of games really came into it. In RuneScape, I wasn't really that much into the social aspect of the game, but in Minecraft I really learned to play together and play multiplayer games. So after the Minecraft whole thing was going on, I also found this different game. This was like way back in like, not way back, but this is like back in maybe 2011, 2012. This was when I first got into a game called Uberstrike, or Uberstrike, whatever you want to call it. Uberstrike or Uberstrike is like the first person shooter that I ever got into. I've known first person shooters before this game, but it's really the first I constantly played and got really competitive about. And it's not a great game. It's like a Facebook game, and looking back on it, it was a huge waste of like time. But I really loved the game, and it brought a huge amount of skill to what I was playing, because Minecraft wasn't really that skillful, right? But Uberstrike, you can bunny hop around, you have different weapons to like flick and skill shot people with, and if you were really good at the game, then you could absolutely destroy a new player, right? Like, it was not even funny how good you can become at the game compared to a new player. So I had like a MacBook at the time, and like this really shitty Apple mouse. If you know what I'm talking about, this Apple mouse with like, you can't right click and left click at the same time. I remember this very much because I wanted to scope in with a sniper rifle, but in order to scope in, you had to like hold your right click and like left click to shoot. But like, since I couldn't do two at the same time, I had to like hold my right click to scope, and then just before I was gonna shoot, like I aimed at somebody, and just before I was gonna shoot, I had to let go of my right click and click left click, and it was like a huge pain in the ass. I still remember how good it felt to like actually get a lot of kills with that, even though I was kind of handicapped in that way. So moving on from the Uberstrike era, there was a time where the game really got like overly buggy and it got really mainstream, and it kind of sounds like really hipster for me to say, oh, it got so mainstream. But the thing is with the game, right, is because it was always so buggy, the small kind of audience for it, or the smaller audience, really made sure that not too many people were like kind of abusing the game. But when it got really mainstream, you saw a lot of hackers and people abusing maps and glitches, and it was really a pain in the ass. Not to say I didn't abuse hacks and glitches, well, particularly glitches I never really hacked. It wasn't very fun to play. You would literally just like walk around and just randomly die because somebody was up in a wall shooting down at you. So I ended up getting pretty good at that game. Not as good as I am now at TF2, I would say, but like pretty decent for me at that age, and having played a serious-ish first-person shooter for the first time in my life. And I kind of, at that point, I had a friend, and this friend of mine asked me, Valve just released this new game. It's called Left 4 Dead 2. You want to like play it with me at my home? And I was like, sure, man, I'll play some Left 4 Dead 2 with you. It sounds like an awesome game. Valve seems like a good game company, that kind of idea. I didn't say that, obviously, but that's what I had in my mind. So I went over to his house, and we played some Left 4 Dead 2. I was really shit at the game, but regardless, it was fun. And I got interested because like I've never really heard of this Valve before. Like I've heard it mentioned before. So I asked my friend, is there any other games Valve makes that are fun or fun to play, And he said, yeah, man, there's this shooter game called Team Fortress 2. And from that moment on, I really got into this game. So I basically played TF2 for a while he was like eating or whatever, taking a break. He booted up TF2, and this was back when TF2 costed money. I played it for a while, and I got absolutely addicted to it. Like I was really shit at the game, obviously. I just started it up, but it was amazing. Like it did what Uberstrike did, but better in every single way. And it wasn't glitchy or buggy or horrible, right? So I really, from that moment on, I kind of transferred my love for the first-person shooter I knew as Uberstrike to the Team Fortress 2 genre, and I kind of really got into that. So, in terms of time frame, I'm not really sure when this was, but this must have been like 2012, 2013-ish. This was like back, it's like 5, 6 years back when I started playing TF2. And you might notice if you know my Steam account that it's only like 5 years old. It's not like 6 years old. That was because like my first half a year of playing TF2 was with my friend on his account. So we had like kind of a shared account thing, because my parents wouldn't buy me TF2 because they didn't like shooter games that much, so they wouldn't pay for the game. So I kind of played with him on the shared account, and then finally, when TF2 went free to play, I don't know how much longer that was, or if it was around the same time or not, but when TF2 went free to play, my parents didn't have to pay for it, right? So that's when I made my Steam account and downloaded TF2. From then on till now, I've pretty much been playing TF2. To break that down, the era that I was playing TF2 in, I started off playing TF2 very casually, as everyone does, of course. And I played a lot of pubs with very high ping. I didn't know what ping was. And I would say oh, is high ping better? And I joined like the highest ping servers, and I lagged the fuck out. But I didn't really care, this is like a great time of my life. I didn't really care about all that sort of stuff, and I just had fun with the game. And as I got better at the game, I really took interest in the scout class. At first it was mainly soldier and pyro, but I really took notice of the scout class and started playing a lot of scout and quite a lot of pyro as well still. So after I kind of got into TF2 more and started playing the game a bit more seriously, like not on the level of competitive, but like pub stomping, right? So after I started doing that, I moved again, and I went to a different country and kind of got into the Asian scene from there. And the Asian scene is very interesting because they do competitive kind of differently from like Europe and North America, where in my opinion it's a bit harder to get into the competitive scene just because their pug systems are less user-friendly or less beginner-friendly, I would say. So kind of moving into that time is when I really got sick of like pub stomping. I've been playing the game for a few years now. I mean like Spy at that point and like Pyro or something. It was really strange. I moved from Scout to like Pyro to Spy to Pyro. It kind of like changed a lot. But I was playing a lot of Spy at that time, and I was looking I still remember this from this moment of my life today, where I was like, hey, I've heard of this thing called esports, and I know of League of Legends and stuff. They're like a big esport, right? Let me kind of like look if TF2 can be played competitively. So I talked to some of my friends, and they told me, oh yeah, there's this format called 6v6, and there's this format called Highlander, and you should look into Platinum, right? And this is really interesting because they meant I think they meant UGC Platinum or whatever. But the funny thing was I looked up TF2 Platinum on YouTube or something, and found like a bunch of videos of the competitive player Platinum in sixes, and I started watching a bunch of those, and then got to all the competitive casting kind of services and YouTube channels, and I kind of really watched a lot of competitive TF2 from that moment on. I got really into the sixes scene, watching it, not playing it, and I also like to watch Highlander from time to time. From that moment on, I kind of wanted to look for a team I could play in Highlander, and since I mained Spy for a long time, I wanted to kind of play Spy for a team. But the problem with Spy is that at that time there were so many spies that you couldn't find a spot in a team if you were Spy. Only if you were very lucky could you find a spot in a team, right? So I tried to join teams. I joined 3 different teams as 2 of them as a sub, one as a main, but they died, or things went on. I didn't have enough time to play competitive TF2, and I eventually just kind of gave up. I continued my love for the game, of course, but I kind of gave up trying to get into competitive because school was eating up my time. I was doing boarding school at this time, so I didn't have any time during weekdays to play TF2. And this kind of really sucked because if I started playing competitive TF2, I was already interested in sixes as well at that time, particularly Scout. If I started at that time, I would have so much more experience now, as a competitive player. I'd probably be quite a bit better than I am now. But because of my time constraints, I really couldn't play competitive TF2. So what I did instead is I thought to myself, eventually I'm gonna have the time to play in a team. So what I should do with my time before playing in a team is try to get better at aiming, watch a lot of casts, watch a lot of videos on YouTube, and become better at the aspects of competitive TF2 without actually playing it or playing in a team. So I try to watch as many casts as possible, watch as many videos as possible, play a lot of MGE, that kind of thing, to get better at the game. I also try to get into Pugs, but this was really an on-off thing because in Asia, the Pug system is kind of not as beginner friendly, because you basically go to a server and do the double mix roll to spec thing, and the last 2 people are the medics. And I was really confused by this system at the time. And even though I looked up a tutorial, they had a written tutorial on how to do it, I was really confused still. And I ended up playing Medic a bunch of times, and I didn't want to play Medic, I wanted to play Scout. And I got yelled at because I was really bad. So I kind of got pushed away from the purging aspect of the game till around, let's say, 6 months later. So at this time, I found out that at my school I got a new laptop, and I got my parents allowed me to bring my laptop to school, right? And I downloaded a VPN on it so I could play on the school network, play TF2 that is. And so suddenly the whole world came available to me. I could do whatever I want in TF2. I could join a team. I had the time to play. So what I ended up doing is I played a lot of Pugs. I learned the people, I played a lot of Medic because obviously I was still bad at rolling to spec. Sometimes I rolled to spec in time though. And I remember this one Pug where I rolled to spec on time and I got picked as Scout, which is a really hype moment for me because I got picked as Scout in 1 out of 5 Pugs, right? And there was this guy in my team. In that Pug, it was Product, and I was playing Scout, and I absolutely destroyed at that game. I got like fucking like 400 DPM, like I 5-0'd them, like completely carried my team. I was on fire that day. Like I'm not that I was not that good at Scout back then, but I was on fire that game. And this guy in my team who was really impressed by that. And he asked me, you know, I'm making a Division 3 Asia Fortress team and also a UGC team. Do you want to join it as a scout main? And I was like, fuck yeah, man. This is my first real team, you know? And this was like maybe 2-3 years ago, 2.5 years ago. And so I ended up joining them, and I played really badly because like my performance was really on and off. And this is when I really got into like the hardships of having a team and playing competitive sixes. Was because I was underperforming a lot and my team wasn't really happy with my playstyle, and they asked me to improve more. And the issue that I had was I knew what I was doing most of the time, but I didn't really have the DM skill, like the ability to kill enemy players. So I ended up not having the best logs, and my team leader really cared about that a lot. So I ended up getting cut from the team, and this was before even the season started. And he said to me, I can find better scouts than you, so even though, you know, I like you as a player, I'd rather get better scouts and than keep you on the team. So I was like, okay, that's fine, right? I understand what you mean. I was kind of pissed off, but I understand his reasoning. And I asked him, you know, because our medic, we didn't have a good medic, right? Or something like that. I forgot what it was exactly. We had like to find a medic. I asked him, well, I kind of know how to think about the game. I know the kind of game sense. Because at that point I've been watching a lot and learning a lot of about TF2 competitively on videos, right? So I asked him, you know what, I'll play medic. I've only like 100 hours on medic at that time. But I think if I practice a lot with you guys, I can become a decent medic. And he said, you know what, we'll try it out. So I played really shitty at medic, but I got a lot better really quickly. And I tried as much as I could to become the best medic I could be, so I could stay in this team and learn how to play with teams, right? So at this point, I was decent at medic, and this was kind of like 1.5, 2 years ago. And I remember watching Twitch, and I saw this TF2 player called Mr. Slin, and this is like an interesting point in my life where he was doing demo reviews on stream, and I asked him, you know, Mr. Slin, can you kind of review my demo? And he told me on stream, sure man, after I finish reviewing this demo, I'll review yours. It's like, alright, so I was watching the stream late at night, because he's in US times, right? Late at night, and I remember him saying, oh, I'm so tired right now, I'll whatever demos I have left, I'll review on my YouTube channel, right? So I was like, holy shit, like what's gonna happen, right? And like a few days later, there it was, my demo of me playing medic with my team was reviewed on YouTube by Mr. Slin. And this is like, I learned so much from that, and it was a really big turning point for me, where I started becoming a lot better at TF2 and a lot more motivated to play the game. So moving on from that, there's a lot of things that happened in between then and now, but I kind of want to skip over them because I moved again and I couldn't play a season or two. So I kind of really didn't play much in the team, but that's all like really detailed and a long story that I don't really want to get into too much now. So I moved back to Europe at that point, and I immediately wanted to play Scout because I've been playing Medic this entire time, mainly because I needed to play Medic, and Medic was necessary for me to play in order to actually play sixes in Asia, that was. But in Europe, it's a lot bigger, the scene is a lot bigger, and there's a lot more opportunities for me, right? So I ended up playing Scout for an open team, which I will not name. because it was not exactly my best first experience in ETF2L. We played the season, did okay, but the worst thing about it was I was trying to teach my team how to become better at TF2 because they had a lot of issues with game sense. At that point, I was already decent at the game sense part of the game, right? And I've been practicing a lot of DM and Pugs and lobbies and all that sort of stuff to get better at Scout. So I was probably one of the better players in my team. So I was trying to teach them how to play TF2. And they kind of didn't really listen to me that well. So I got really frustrated about it. And to the point where they kind of took my criticism as me calling them bad, right? So I would say, for example, I remember this moment where our demo was like, had like 20 HP, we're holding last with Uber disadvantage, and he would just see a scout, like he had 20 HP, right? He would see a scout, this was on Gully, he would see a scout in River, and he would just hold W into him and instantly die, and then the enemy team would push in and obviously win because we didn't have a demo, right? So this was kind of like, I remember this moment when I said, like, you don't do this, you don't run if you have low health, or if they have Uberad, you don't do this, and he ended up just muting me outright, and I was like really offended by that, and this was like a big point in my life where I was like, is what I'm saying not correct, or maybe I'm saying it wrong? It's a big realization in my life. I was also really frustrated, and I thought they were wrong. Before the last match of the season, they cut me from the team because we had like a big issue between each other, and I had like big beef with the team leader. So from that point on, call it the team curse with me. It's like I would get into a team, and before the season starts, or just when the season starts, the team would either die or I would be cut from the team. And this has kind of been going on for like over a year and a half now, where I played open in my first team, got cut just before the season ended, and then got into my next team. I think this was mid-team, I'm not sure. We practiced a lot, but just before the season started, they died because of some internal beef between some players. And then I played in another mid-team that was gonna go top mid and try to win mid, but our medic got addicted to a different game, and our pocket, I think it was our pocket, had to like go because he had real life issues. So the team died just before the season started. And then after that, this was like half a year ago, maybe, I got into the team called Chaos Esports. And this team was like the first proper mid team that actually played anything like official with me. And it was a big thing in my life where I could actually play with a team, some officials. But it ended up not being exactly as I planned, because I was at that point quite frustrated with how TF2 was going and how my real life was going. I'd started uni at that point, and there were some things in uni that were really affecting, how I played or what kind of person I was. So I would best describe myself at that point in the game as being quite toxic. 2 teams before this team had failed me. I was really agitated. My life was not really working out, so I kind of took it out on my teammates. And it was kind of like half shit talking, half trying to help them, and it was not really positive at all. So eventually the team leader got really sick of it, and they were all shit talking me at that point, which was kind of deserved and not deserved at the same time, I would feel. And they cut me from the team just before the main ETF2L season started. I did play the preseason cup with them, I think. Yeah. And like a one-night cup with them, which ended up going really well. So I did that with them, and that was like my first real league experience in mid. And after that, I took a 3-month break from TF2, 3-4 month break, because I wanted to sort out my life. And at that point, I came back to the game, which was like 4 weeks ago from the time of recording. And since then, I kind of wanted to take it easy and kind of work my way up again. So I joined an open team, not exactly the best open team, but I joined a team, you know. And my goal with joining this team is to become better at the game, get into it again, and kind of make them become better, like teach them how to play the game, and eventually, you know, move on with bigger and better things in the game. So look out for that in the future, guys, and thank you for listening to kind of like my story about how I got into TF2 and how the competitive aspect of TF2 kind of revealed itself. If you have any questions, I left out a lot of details in this video about, you know, specific things that happened in Asia and like in certain teams in Europe, and like before I started playing competitive TF2. But the main details are here, and that's pretty much what I set out to do. Anyways, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.